Wells Adams revealed he was tipped off about being a target by Dylan Efron on the Traitors 3. The Traitors 3 featured a surprising first banishment, but Wells Adams revealed he had been warned. During the second episode of the season, Wells from Bachelor Nation appeared blindsided during the first roundtable. It wasn't easy to predict who would be banished first, because most players seemed lost on who the traitors were this season. Wells, Robin Dixon from the Real Housewives of Potomac, and Lord Ivar Mountbatten were mentioned as possible traitors at the roundtable. Robin and Ivar received 4 votes each, but Wells got a 5th vote to send him packing. The early elimination of Wells shocked many viewers, but it turns out that Dylan Efron gave Wells a heads up. Dylan warned Wells about being at risk. "I had a little bit of heads up," Wells Adams stated in a new interview. He was speaking about his early exit from the castle. Wells explained that Dylan Efron came to him about 10 minutes before the roundtable with a stark warning. "Yo, I'm hearing your name," Dylan allegedly told Wells. "Yeah, I don't understand it either," he added. Dylan also suggested that Wells go to some politicking around the house before the vote. Wells agreed it was a good idea, but reacted too slowly, as the producers soon called them to the roundtable. This interesting nugget from Wells was revealed during his recent appearance on the Vile Files. We will see Wells again at the Traitors 3 reunion show. That episode is released on the same night as the season finale this March. Well, that was fast. Listen, I can stomach being banished, but how dare you get rid of an American treasure like Dorinda Medley? Anyways, here's us giving out superlatives to a bunch of people who betrayed us. The Traitors' peacock, Wells wrote on Instagram after his time on the Traitors 3. Dylan Efron is still active on the Traitors 3. Dylan survived through the first 4 episodes and has become a hot topic on social media. He was on Down to Earth with his brother Zac Efron, and Bob the drag queen disparaged Zac during episode 4. Bob the drag queen from RuPaul's Drag Race was the latest player banished after Boston Rob Mariano from Survivor dramatically turned on him. More news and notes from the Traitors 3. Host Alan Cumming warned this season gets intense and brutal. He also warned that players almost have a physical fight soon. Tony Vlachos predicted Carolyn will win the Traitors 3. The 2-time Survivor winner called her a genius at the game. Wells Adams hadn't planned on lasting long in the ruthless world of the Traitors Season 3. Sure, he had some experience navigating drama from his time as the charismatic bartender of Bachelor in Paradise, but this was a whole new level. Backstabbing, manipulation, alliances. It wasn't just reality TV. It was psychological warfare. Yet there he was, still standing amidst a shrinking pool of contestants who eyed each other with a mix of suspicion and desperation. The castle they were staying in, a sprawling, Gothic masterpiece tucked away in the Scottish Highlands, felt more like a medieval dungeon each day. Paranoia hung in the air like a thick fog. Wells had been playing it cool, sticking to his charm and quick wit to deflect suspicion, but things were shifting. The game's pressure cooker was about to blow. It was during a rare moment of solitude in the castle's library when Dylan Efron approached him. Dylan, Zac's younger brother, had kept a relatively low profile throughout the game. While others schemed and whispered in dark corners, Dylan had been the laid-back athlete, cracking jokes and downplaying his intelligence. But something about his demeanor today was different. There was a flicker of intensity in his eyes, a tightness in his usually relaxed jaw. "Wells," Dylan said quietly, glancing around to make sure no one else was within earshot. "We need to talk." Wells raised an eyebrow, but gestured for Dylan to sit across from him at the long wooden table. The room was dimly lit, the only illumination coming from a flickering candelabra. The atmosphere felt almost too perfect for what came next. "What's up, man?" Wells asked casually, though his pulse quickened. Conversations that started with "we need to talk" rarely ended well in this game. Dylan leaned in, lowering his voice to a near whisper. "I think you're being set up." Wells's heart skipped a beat. He kept his face neutral, a skill he'd honed over years of listening to drunken confessions on Bachelor in Paradise. "Set up?" he repeated, his tone light. "By who?" Dylan hesitated, as if weighing the consequences of what he was about to reveal. Finally, he said, "A few people, but mainly it's Kate." Wells couldn't help but smirk. Kate Chastain, the former below-deck chief stew, had been a thorn in everyone's side since day one. Sharp-tongued and unapologetically strategic, she was the kind of player who thrived in a game like this. If anyone was orchestrating a plot against him, it made sense that she'd be involved. "What makes you think that?" Wells asked, leaning back in his chair. Dylan's voice dropped even lower. "I overheard her talking to Cody. They were discussing who they'd go after next, and your name came up. Kate was pushing hard, saying you've been flying under the radar too much, that you're too likable and no one would suspect you if you were a traitor." Wells's stomach churned. It wasn't the first time he'd heard whispers about his name being floated, but hearing it confirmed, and from someone like Dylan, made it real. "Why are you telling me this?" Wells asked, studying Dylan's face for any signs of deceit. In this game, trusting anyone was a gamble. Dylan leaned back, running a hand through his hair. "Because I think it's bullshit. You've been straight with me this whole time. And honestly, I'd rather have you around than half the people here. If Kate gets her way, you're gone tomorrow. I thought you deserved a heads up." Wells nodded slowly, processing the information. Dylan seemed genuine, but that didn't mean he wasn't playing his own game. Still, the intel made sense. Kate had been eyeing him more than usual lately, her sharp gaze lingering a little too long during group discussions. And Cody, well, Cody was Cody. The big brother alum was as slippery as they came. "Thanks for telling me," Wells said finally. "But if Kate's gunning for me, what's your plan? You're sticking your neck out by coming to me." Dylan shrugged. "Kate thinks I'm just some dumb jock. She'd never suspect I'd team up with you. And honestly, I've got nothing to lose. The way I see it, we either take her down, or we're both screwed." Wells couldn't help but chuckle. Bold strategy. I like it. The two spent the next hour strategizing. Dylan shared more details about the conversations he'd overheard, and Wells started piecing together a plan. If Kate wanted to paint him as a traitor, he'd have to flip the narrative. That meant subtly sowing seeds of doubt about her without making it obvious he was fighting back. The next day, during the group meeting in the grand dining hall, Wells put their plan into motion. He'd always been good at reading a room, and today the tension was palpable. Kate sat at the far end of the table, her expression cool and composed. Cody was next to her, fidgeting slightly, a tell Wells had picked up on whenever Cody was nervous. "You know what's funny about this game?" Wells said, his tone light as he addressed the group. "It's how quickly the spotlight shifts. 1 minute you're invisible, and the next, everyone's looking at you like you've got a knife behind your back." A few people chuckled nervously, but Wells saw Kate's eyes narrow ever so slightly. Good, she knew where he was going with this. "Take Kate, for example," Wells continued, flashing her a disarming smile. "She's been running this game like it's a 5-star yacht. But maybe it's time we ask ourselves, is she steering us toward the truth, or just where she wants us to go?" Kate raised an eyebrow, her lips curving into a smirk. "Nice try, Wells, but deflecting only makes you look more guilty." "Deflecting?" Wells repeated, feigning offense. "I'm just pointing out the obvious. You've been calling the shots since day one. Maybe it's time we ask why." The room buzzed with murmurs as people exchanged uneasy glances. Dylan, true to his word, chimed in at just the right moment. "Wells has a point," Dylan said. "Kate's been awfully confident lately, almost like she knows more than the rest of us." Kate's smirk faltered just for a second, but it was enough. The seed of doubt had been planted. By the end of the day, the focus had shifted from Wells to Kate. Her name dominated the discussion during the roundtable, and despite her best efforts to defend herself, the group ultimately voted to banish her. As Kate's portrait was turned over to reveal she was, in fact, a faithful, Wells felt a pang of guilt. But in the Traitors, survival came first, and thanks to Dylan's warning, he'd managed to live another day. Later that night, as Wells sat by the fire nursing a glass of scotch, Dylan joined him. "Well, that worked out better than I expected," Dylan said, a sly grin on his face. Wells raised his glass in a mock toast. "Here's to unlikely alliances. Let's see how long we can keep this up."